With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
You've discovered your link to GoPowerCat.com's PowerCat podcast. Now, here's your host, GoPowerCat.com publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to The Insiders, the PowerCat Insiders podcast brought to you by Blue Mark Energy. I am host Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com, joined today by Matt Walters, sideline analyst for the K-State Radio Network, and the former tight end Travis Tannehill. Ryan Black is off watching NASCAR. I don't know. He said he had lots of meetings today. Who could Ryan Black possibly be meeting with that's more important than the three of us? No, that's not happening. He's just making stuff up. He probably just wanted the day off from the hard questioning he gets on the show. We're sponsored by Blue Mark Energy. Does your company or your employer spend $4,000 or more a year on energy bills? Would you like to reduce those costs by 25% or more and maintain the same level of service and reliability? If so, it's time to speak with Blue Mark Energy. Blue Mark Energy, K-State owned and K-State proud. Well, let's just dive right in, guys. It was just announced that Chris Klieman has received a contract extension that will push him up over $4 million a year eventually through, it's running what, Trav, through 2026, we said?
2026.
What are your thoughts on this? Start with you, Travis.
I mean, the timing just seems a little odd for me. I mean, obviously, the nation's in a global pandemic. We're barely limping along a college football season. Money is supposedly, revenue's down from ticket sales, TV contracts and everything else. So the timing seems a little off, which just tells me that, probably Chris Klieman's phone was ringing from other schools showing interest. So probably I don't think Gene probably brings this to the table proactively. I think this is more probably a reactive move but by Gene, so which is fine. I think you definitely want to keep the guy there. You've put enough he's done enough good things, and he's put enough foundation in place that you want to see this thing through for at least 4, 5, 6 more years, if and when he decides to go somewhere else. So hopefully we can keep around a lot longer than that, as long as he keeps winning. So he's doing a nice job, but just the timing of everything seems a little off for me. So I think that phone must have been ringing for Coach Klieman, which if that's the case, then Gene was probably forced his hand a little bit to throw a little more money at him to lock him down for the next, 6 years now.
Matt, this is always something that I've had some issues with. A coach early in his second year of a contract he signed is doing exactly the type of job you hired him to do. I mean, they didn't hire him to lose or rebuild. You hoped he would get off and running. And granted, winning 8 games in your first year is quite a statement, but they're 2-1 this season. I just always find this timing so weird. It's right in the middle of the season, and it's a lengthy extension that bumps him quite a bit. I don't know. I couldn't be an AD. I couldn't do this. I'd say, hey, you're doing great. You're doing the job I hired you to do. Maybe we'll get to a pay raise later on, but maybe Trav's right. Maybe someone was calling it.
Well, yeah, here's how I look at it, and I look at it a little bit differently. Yeah, it's October 5, and it's out of the ordinary, but where I will come at it from a different angle is, yeah, he's a football coach, but think about what he has had to deal with since he stepped foot on campus, especially in the last 6 to 7 months. And granted, all football coaches are, but with with everything with COVID and the turmoil that he and all the other coaches and coaches everywhere have had to deal with, I think that fits into it as well. I think it's more than just he's won 8 games last year and he's won 2 games this year and has beaten Oklahoma yet again. I think there's a little more to it. It wouldn't surprise me if the phone was ringing. It'd be odd thinking that Chris Klieman's already getting calls in October from somebody else in another institution, but there are other football programs that are obviously struggling right now. So I think it's just in mass, it has to do with the whole pie. It's not just winning games. And again, Coach Klieman has told me, he said, this is the grind of all grinds. I mean, coaches are dealing with stuff they've never had to really deal with before. So he's also said it's a marathon and he has no intention of really looking for another job. And I'd say this kind of seals it up right now. So, yeah, you have to have results. They'll have to continue to produce. But, I think so far what he's done here has been very, very positive on a lot of fronts.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. I just this is the part of the athletic director business that I'm not a huge fan of, having to redo deals that are hardly even been dented in terms of.
Yeah, the paint's barely dry.
Yeah, 5 years I think he signed for, and now a year and 3 games in, he's on a new contract. That's good, and I expect people to come after him. I mean, he's been successful, and he's not only been successful, he's his demeanor is so likable. I mean, there's no way fans are going to turn back on this hire. Once they meet him, it happened at Kansas State. They were wondering about hiring someone from the FCS level, and then the fans met him and saw him at press conferences. Were like, okay, we're in. I think he is going to be a valuable commodity if Kansas State continues to have winning seasons for programs that are maybe higher profile, honestly, bigger budgets, and wanting to get things back on track. But as long as his AD, Gene Taylor's here, Trav, I don't expect him to go anywhere. I think they are locked at the hip, and my concern really becomes if Gene Taylor ever leaves, what happens then?
Yeah, that is the interesting dynamic with these two, is they have such a long history together, and they are, they quote unquote seem to, kind of be buddies. They're friends, along with, a boss type relationship, which an AD needs to have. So that is unique. I think they're going to, and that's maybe the phone wasn't ringing. Maybe Gene was just like, hey, you're doing a great job. I want to pay you as much as I possibly can to keep you around, which is fine as well. So no, I'm with you. Yeah, the ink just dried on his last contract. If 8 wins was the goal and kind of where we thought he would be, then why are we rewarding a guy for just meeting the threshold? But I also know that it seems these contracts just get bigger and bigger, like NFL quarterbacks and everything else. Every year they get a little bigger than last year. So I don't know who initiated this conversation, but at the end of the day, the contract signed. He's getting a little more money and maybe a little more respect. That comes along with more money as you move up the ranks of Big 12 coaching pay. So hopefully it'll continue the progress. What worries me is he's making $4 million in 2 or 3 years, and they win 5 games. What does that put Gene in a tight spot? Is he forced to make a move? Does he then get a hot seat? Starts whispering going on. So we'll see. Good for Coach Kleiman. Good for Coach Kleiman and his family.
Yeah, you can say that at a lot of places, though. I mean, when you put an extension in place, or when you sign, a coach for that kind of money, yeah, sure, it's easy to say, what if in 2 years or 3 years from now he's only winning 5 ball games? But I would be surprised, and you guys may differ. I would be surprised if the phone was ringing. I don't think Chris Kleiman initiated this. I bet it came more from Gene Taylor. Just that's my personal guess. It's only a guess, but I have a hard time thinking that Chris Kleiman walked into Gene Taylor's office and said, "Hey, my phone's ringing. What are we going to do about this?" I don't see that right now. That's just me.
Yeah, but that goes back to what you mentioned about the season being so weird, out of sorts, and so many other things to deal with. I find it hard to believe, even if his own agent called and said, "Hey, so and so wants to talk," that Chris would say, "No, not now. I got too much to worry about." So yeah. I just think I don't know. We'll see how Kleiman handles this. It was neatly leaked to a national college football writer about 2 minutes after he left the Big 12 teleconference, so he didn't have to answer a question about it. But he did answer a lot of other questions on the Monday teleconference, including the health of Skylar Thompson. Guys, he said he might be available for TCU. I find that maybe more gamesmanship than reality. But he also said that there was nothing broken on X-ray Sunday, and that was a really positive sign. I feel deeply for Skylar Thompson. I feel horrible for him. It's a shortened season. There's not many opportunities to play, less opportunities to play, I should say, and to now maybe miss a game. I don't see any way he returns for TCU, particularly with an off week coming next week. And then Kansas, you can get him 2 weeks of rest, if not 3, if you go into Kansas, and then maybe have him back at 100%. But, Matt, this is sad that the senior quarterback goes down like this.
Yeah, and it was from the get-go on Saturday. I mean, he and Rico Jeffers were getting after it right away, and I think it started with Rico Jeffers and Skyler, tried to hold his own verbally, but he took a couple shots before that one that knocked him out of the ball game. And, Rico Jeffers had a chip on his shoulder, and at times guys do. But I don't know that I would force the issue. I mean, you've got to do a lot of things to get more on the plate of Will Howard. And both Chris Kleiman and Will Howard told me Saturday that everything was on his plate when he came in at quarterback. But now they've got a lot to get done. Courtney Messingham and Chris Kleiman and so forth. And Colin Klein, for that matter. I mean, Colin was constantly communicating with Will in that ball game. But I think it's going to be Will Howard for 60 minutes on Saturday.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I wouldn't force the issue, Fitzy, because you need him. It's a long haul.
Yeah,
and that goes back to the question we talked about earlier. I mean, it's a free year for everybody. So does this alter Skylar Thompson's thinking in terms of coming back next year? I think it just depends on, if this is the only game he misses and he can come back, then I don't know that he would come back for another year. But just a little more salt in the recipe, I guess.
Yeah, Trav, his numbers don't look great from the time he played on Saturday, but I kind of felt like that win at OU, which he did last year, but he seemed confident, he seemed in control, and I thought he was on his way to having a big game against Texas Tech, and then he took a shot. And interestingly enough, the shot was to his left side, and he actually appears got injured on the fall because it's his right arm that he landed on his shoulder, so I'm not sure. But, boy, he looked good in the early stages of this game. I was really fired up to see what he could do.
Yeah, I mean, his demeanor the whole week, showed a lot of confidence and showed that he was, happy with how he played at OU and felt good about the game plan going into Texas Tech. And, yeah, I mean, the stat line, 5 for 10 with 33 yards and 1 touchdown isn't great. But, I mean, he's kind of sometimes he can take a little bit to get going. He's kind of a slow starter maybe sometimes. So kind of gets into that rhythm a little bit down the road. And he's kind of a hot and cold quarterback where he'll struggle for 2 or 3 drives in a row, and then he'll, string together 7, 8, 9 completions in a row. So, obviously, you're heartbroken when you see it happen live on the field like we did. The fall was not overly violent for, just him. A lot of times you see a big old guy land and drive his shoulder into the ground. The hit was violent on his left shoulder, but the actual drive into the ground really didn't look that bad. So initially I thought, maybe he hit the back of his head, concussion. But then when we saw him come out with that sling, obviously a bum shoulder, throwing shoulder. So hopefully we'll see. I'm a classic. I had terrible shoulders, multiple AC sprains, which are super painful. There's no way you could throw you could definitely not throw a football that day once you sprain or tear one. But within a week or two, that swelling goes down. They can inject those pretty good and numb them up. So we'll see if he can get out there and play this week, like Matt mentioned. But if there's nothing broke, I mean, I thought, broke his collarbone, needs surgery, 12 weeks. That's kind of where my mind went. So if that's not the case, hopefully it's just an AC sprain, which he should be back. Hopefully, as long as it's not too severe, should be back hopefully within a week or two.
Well, was that fall, in your eyes, consistent with an AC sprain?
I mean, guys either break their collarbone or they sprain their AC. I mean, that's probably 95% of injuries that happen when you fall on your shoulder. So, an AC sprain, a first degree is hardly nothing. Second degree is, hey, this is going to hurt and we're going to need some treatment. And then a third degree for a quarterback usually means they're going to need surgery and they're not going to play. So hopefully other positions you can play through a third degree, but a quarterback on the throwing arm, you can't usually play through that. Sam Bradford had it at OU when he was down there. So hopefully it's that second degree sprain, which can be managed through treatment and can be, injected prior to the game to help with some of that pain management. So, obviously, 100% speculation. And the only thing I know is that Coach Kleiman said there was no breaks, which usually, it's either a break or an AC sprain 95% of the time. So,
Next topic. Matt Walters, I was impressed with Will Howard. Was he great? No, but he didn't look like a true freshman in a Big 12 football game that was on the line and suddenly his team fell behind. He's kind of a cool customer, and I like it. I don't know if they really did make the entire playbook available to him, but I am impressed by the true freshman quarterback.
Yeah, he throws for 173 yards and a touchdown. I think it could very easily be said the play of the game was his completion to Briley Moore when Briley busted it down the sideline right in front of the Tech bench, because that got K-State going, and they had been waiting to, I think, do some things with him, but I was on pins and needles just because when Will Howard came in, you knew that Texas Tech was going to bring the kitchen sink, the entire house, and they did. And on that play, it was a bootleg, and Will is somewhat fortunate because he should have gotten in the football a lot earlier than he did. It was not a great pass, but Moore makes a good catch and then again scoots down the sideline. But he was calm, cool. He didn't look like he was a typical freshman and flustered and deer in the headlights look, so to speak. And I was impressed. And afterwards, he's not a brash guy. It was like, I'm just glad I had my offensive line and made some plays and kind of gave you a little bit of the aw shucks, here we go stuff. But it's kind of what you expect from a kid out of Pennsylvania. So kudos to him. But I don't know. I thought as physical as Texas Tech was, what worries me about SMU, what worries me about TCU on the road is if you go back over, let's just say the last 5 or 6 years, name me a game where the physical toll taken on Kansas State has been greater. It usually seems to me like it's against TCU. Now, granted, K-State lost 3 guys this game, but still, over the course of time, TCU has always been one of the more black and blue games for K-State to get out of in one piece. And to me, that's a little concern going to Fort Worth this weekend.
Yeah, the team was pretty beat up on Saturday. You have Joaquin Gill with a break, it looked like, and he's gone for the season. Cooper Beebe is day-to-day, as Coach Kleiman said. Joshua Youngblood apparently is in the doghouse or suspended for something because he said he simply wasn't available, and they hope that he's available this week. So I thought that was intriguing. Travis, before we move on, your thoughts on Will Howard?
I mean, yeah, overall, I think you got to be super pleased with how he, how he played as a true freshman. I mean, I can't imagine being handed the reins as a true freshman, and I played 5 to 7 snaps as a backup tight end my true freshman year, and the game was going really fast, and you're just kind of surviving out there. So overall, super impressed. I mean, you watch him play, and what's probably most amazing to me, and what I was most impressed with is, a lot of times when you get thrown into the fire, kind of your fundamentals go out the window, and it's like, your footwork kind of struggles, and it's just like, hey, just hand the ball off and we'll call it good and we'll work on the details later. But when you watch his footwork on his drops and his handoffs, I mean, everything was crisp and perfect. So, he was reading the defense as he should. We saw him, he was licking his chops on that Deuce Vaughn when he saw that linebacker. I mean, that's kind of tier 2 stuff for a quarterback where, it needs to be, you need to be making those adjustments and reads when you're a Big 12 quarterback, but that's pretty impressive for a guy who's just getting thrown in there and kind of taking it, drinking water through a fire hose. So overall, super impressed. I think Kansas State, whether Skyler comes back next year or not, in whatever it is, 1, 2, 3 years, once Will Howard does get the reins handed to him, which is kind of looking how it's going to go. I think Kansas State fans got a lot to look forward to as that kid progresses and matures. He's got everything there, and it seems like the fundamentals are there. Just need to get him up to speed on the playbook and getting used to this the speed of the Big 12.
Matt, that final touchdown Travis just alluded to where the freshman quarterback and the freshman running back gave each other that look you do at the line of scrimmage like, do you see what I'm seeing? As a linebacker hopped out to try to cover Deuce Vaughn, and they took advantage of it. Not only did they execute the play, they recognized the play. And that shows me 2 guys that are pretty comfortable in their surroundings.
Advanced young man for freshmen. And again, it wasn't the greatest pass that he threw to Deuce. I mean, Deuce had to kind of reach behind him and snag it, but he got it there, and that's what matters. And and then Deuce Vaughn does the rest. I had to laugh after the game. Granted the timing, Deuce very easily could have gone down before the goal line, but in that situation, I take the points. Don't stop. Just get to the end zone, bump the lead up, and just don't even leave any kind of chance for Texas Tech. But, again, those are two guys that are going to be difference makers. And, Travis alluded to when Skylar's gone. I mean, you're going to have a pretty good 1-2 quarterback punch in Will Howard and Jake Rubley, whoever winds up being the guy as time goes. As good a 1-2 punch at quarterback as K-State's probably had in a while. But I love Deuce Vaughn. That kid is – I still don't want to hear people calling him Darren Sproles. Don't do that to him. Let him be Deuce. Let him develop his own persona. Don't throw that weight on his shoulders. But he's handling it all right now, and he's handling it like a champ, and he is already causing nightmares for coaches around the conference.
He sure is. And, Trav, Matt alluded to this, but I want your thoughts on when you saw Bradley Moore make that catch, turn up the sideline, stay in bounds, and get all the way down inside the 10. As a former tight end, you had to just be loving that.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bradley's been everything as advertised. I mean, we kind of knew a little bit of him coming out of Northern Iowa, but, obviously the competition's a step up here in the Big 12. So, but no, when he made that catch, and just to see these quarterbacks truly, I mean, obviously they're going through their progression, but for a long time, I feel like the Kansas State tight ends, and even running backs for that matter, have kind of been the check down, the last resort. If no one else is open, we're going to take our little 5 yards over the ball or 5-yard swinger out and live to play another down. Where now it seems like, Coach Mess and this offensive staff, they're using the tight ends, as a threat, as a weapon, which Bradley Moore has the capabilities to do. So the more you do that, the more you find ways to get the ball to him and Deuce. And like Matt mentioned, I mean, Deuce has been nothing but incredibly impressive. I mean, running backs can have one-off 100-yard games. So I was still waiting a little bit. Just all right, this guy's good, but a lot of running backs can go off for 100 yards a couple times a season, and he just happened to do it two games in a row. But I mean, we heard that Texas Tech staff say they were going to shut down Deuce Vaughn prior to the game. That was their number one focus, was they're going to key on Deuce Vaughn and make someone else beat you, and Deuce Vaughn still beat them. So he's exceptional. Bradley Moore's exceptional, because we do need a little more production out of our wide receivers.
That's one thing I think K-State really needs to lock in on is, and it's partly incumbent upon the kid, what you have in Harry Trotter, okay? He's not a game breaker, but he's your security blanket. And, you think about the drive when K-State took it 97 yards there in the second quarter, and Skylar had that big run to get first down on 3rd and long. It was Harry that was in there to block. Where I'm going with all this is we only saw him for just a smidge on Saturday, and that's Jacardier Wright. If you want to talk about thunder and lightning, okay, that's fine. But Jacardier has got to come along. If Kansas State can get a running back that's got some size and is 200 pounds, and, Jacardier's got the gifts and the talent, I think he's still trying to get everything figured out, mind your P's and Q's. But if Kansas State can have that dual threat, and I don't mean quarterback, I mean you got a big dude running the ball and that little dude carrying the mail, that's going to make K-State a real load to get ready for every week. So, there are two guys that I really want to see pick it up, and that is Jacardier Wright and Malik Knowles. Malik, you got to start being a factor. You're not catching enough balls. You're not doing enough. You got to make your presence felt. And those are two guys, Fitz. I know I went down a different path maybe, but those two guys have to figure it out and have to become something bigger and better for K-State.
Trav, is Malik Knowles suffering from the receiver version of the yips?
I don't know if you want to call it that, but I mean, for whatever reason, he's not getting targeted very often, which means he's probably not getting open. I think Skylar, obviously got knocked out this game, but Skylar's a good enough quarterback. He's getting the ball to open receivers. Yeah. But, I mean, just overall, the receiver room in general, I mean, Malik had one catch. Brooks, they only had, 5 catches from the wide receiver room and that whole entire ballgame. I mean, that's not, they should be having 5 catches per drive, let alone per game. So that's not not enough. Obviously they're finding a way to get the ball to the running backs and the tight ends, but those wide receivers need to step it up because you need to, in this offense, you got to be balanced in the run game, got to be balanced in the pass game. And like Matt said, Malik's a guy that, he needs to be catching 5 balls a game. There's no excuse for him having one catch a game, 5 catches, at least 1 touchdown. That should be his average. And he's not anywhere close to that right now.
This is the PowerCat Insiders podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Travis Tannehill, and Matt Walters is your crew for the day. We'll be back on the other side with more discussion of K-State's win over Texas Tech. Got a lot more topics to cover. Also, the state of the Big 12 as Oklahoma and Texas both lose on Saturday.
The PowerCat podcast will be right back.
So I'm a father of one. I gotta find a babysitter. I found Care.com and I was blown away. Through the platform, I was able to find local and experienced candidates along with their reviews and rates, which were way more affordable than I anticipated. Care.com really put me at ease knowing that they were all required to go through a background check. If you're like me and you need to find someone reliable for your childcare necessities, check out Care.com. Find the ideal sitters for your childcare needs.
Imagine the softest sheets you've ever felt. Now imagine them getting even softer over time. I'm here to tell you about Boll & Branch sheets. In a recent customer survey, 96% replied that Boll & Branch sheets get softer with every wash. They're made from the rarest organic cotton and designed to get even softer over time. Try their sheets with a 30-night guarantee plus 15% off your first order with code Odyssey. So head to BOLLandbranch.com today. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
We now send it back to the PowerCat podcast.
Welcome back to the PowerCat Insiders podcast, part of the GoPowerCat.com podcast feed on the 24/7 Sports Network. Tim Fitzgerald, Travis Tannehill, the former tight end, and Matt Walters, who works the sideline for K-State Radio, and just works. He just works. He does pregame, he does postgame, he drives everyone else home. It's just amazing.
Head janitor.
And janitor. Because at the end of the day, he's the one who turns out the lights in the radio booth, so he's got to pick up, right?
And in the road stadiums, too. I'm the last one out, so I shut the light off everywhere.
Blue Mark Energy is a natural gas products and services provider serving feed yards, hospitals, hotels, manufacturers, and school districts throughout the Midwest. And Blue Mark Energy is a natural gas provider for the Kansas State campuses in Manhattan and Salina. Blue Mark Energy, K-State owned and K-State proud. Matt, how were your post-game callers on Saturday?
They're good. I mean, they're the world loves Deuce Vaughn right now, and I think there was empathy for Skylar Thompson. I tell you, we're talking about Coach Kleiman's new contract. I had a caller 2 weeks ago that said, I don't think you guys are talking enough about the coaching staff right now. And I thought about, I answered it. I said Saturday, I don't know that I answered it as well as I could have. But what I said was, after thinking about that question for a week, I really think K-State's coaching speaks for itself right now. I don't think you have to talk a lot about it. Whether you are going to talk about Chris Kleiman or Courtney Messingham, who's been around for a long time, or Joe Klanderman, or, I'll say Stan Weber needs a lot of credit right now because I told him coming out of halftime on Saturday, Fitz, you've been around here a long time. Trav, you played and you've been around a long time. We've seen a lot of streaks, offensively, defensively, some phenomenal streaks. I've never seen anything else like this. This is one of the most unique streaks that K-State has, blocking the first punt in the first 3 games of the year, and it's wild. There are things that K-State can improve at, but I think the coaching staff's doing a very nice job, and I think for the most part, the fan base has got to be happy. Think about what K-State was 3 weeks ago, guys, when they lost to Arkansas State. COVID ravaged, injuries, nowhere close to everybody being available. Did you think K-State would be where it's at 3 weeks later? To me, that's enough said. I mean, K-State's a hell of a team right now. They've got their warts. They're not the most talented team in the country. But where they were 3 weeks ago to where they are now, I don't think you can complain one bit if you're a fan.
No, it's absolutely been an incredible rebound. And really, it was a rebound that happened late in the game at Oklahoma. But we saw K-State score the final 24 points, beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma goes to Iowa State this past weekend and loses late in the game again. Texas loses at home to TCU, K-State's next opponent. Travis Tannehill, this is a weird situation for the Big 12. I'm not going to be surprised if Texas beats Oklahoma and OU's 0-3. That would be stunning, but just the fact that they're 0-2 for the first time in forever in conference play really says something about both how competitive this conference can be, and Oklahoma is not what they have been the past few years.
Overall, this conference, like you said, I mean, from top to bottom, it's as competitive as it's ever been. I mean, the conference is wide open. OU against Iowa State did not look great again. I mean, I don't know quite what's going on up there. Down there. They got all sorts of talent. I think they're just, there's still some young guys out there, and they're getting better and improving. And Spencer Rattler has all the talent in the world, but for whatever reason, he doesn't have that it factor, that clutch gene yet. Just hasn't quite kicked in, which I think will get there in experience. I still think he's going to be a heck of a quarterback in this conference. But if you're a Kansas State fan, you got to be really excited because it's from going to Arkansas State. Hey, we just lost, and we're going to be the laughing stock of the conference if we can't even beat Arkansas State. To holy cows, we're sitting at the top of this conference, and if we just win a couple timely games, we got a chance to win this conference, and we're putting ourselves in a pretty good situation. So, obviously getting a little bit ahead of ourselves there, but overall, you got to be. There's not a single team in this conference that Kansas State can't compete with and can't show up on a Saturday, play well, and win. So you got to be excited. Overall, as a conference, though, Iowa State looked good, not unbeatable. I know that's kind of who everyone's really up on right now. Brock Purdy looked okay. He should have had about 4 interceptions that game. He threw up some ducks that OU couldn't capitalize on. So we'll see. It's going to be an exciting next few weeks for this Big 12 conference.
Yeah, I agree. Matt, your thoughts as we prepare for Oklahoma, Texas, with 2 teams coming off a loss?
Well, I go back to the fact that Oklahoma just does not have that dude on defense. And for as much as people were squawking and guys like us were talking about the struggles that Mike Stoops had with his defenses the last 2 or 3 years, Alex Grinch so far has not been able to get out of that defense what they'd imagined. And you can tell his frustration on the sideline for Oklahoma is just sky high. I mean, they've got guys that I don't think are giving 100% effort, and they're not a good tackling defense. They got all sorts of talent. And then you look at Texas, and it's just, to me, it's same story, second verse for Texas. White-collar football, lots of dudes, and not everybody's on the same page. I mean, at times, to me, it looks like they're in it for themselves. I would love to have a guy like Joseph Osai on my defense. Texas lost that because of doing some little things. You got to be careful when you stretch for the goal line, especially in that kind of moment. And Sam Ehlinger just hasn't played very well to start the year. So I won't be surprised if either team wins that game. I would give Texas the edge this weekend. And boy, howdy, the Covered Wagon fans are going to be all sorts of fired up if Oklahoma is 0-3 to start the conference, which you got to go back to 98 to find the last time they were 0-2, and then 99 was the last time they lost back-to-back regular season games. So a little uneasy it is right now down in Norman, America.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that they're having these kind of issues. And, Trev, you mentioned it. Spencer Rattler looks good, looks like he's going to be the guy. But he also, to me, looks like a quarterback who's had it easy his whole life. Winning's been easy for him because he's always been so much better than everyone else, surrounded by good players. And now that he's faced a couple tough environments, couple tough late-game situations, he really hasn't risen to the occasion. His final throw against Iowa State was really an awful decision, throwing it into double coverage. Lincoln Riley was crying for pass interference. He wasn't going to get on that. And it was picked off. Game over. Iowa State wins. He just is making too many mistakes as the season progresses.
Yeah, and especially, coming down the stretch in the fourth quarter. The one thing I will say about him is I was watching that game live, probably at least 3 or 4 beautiful long balls that were drops. So that OU receiving core is not holding up their end of the – I mean, like perfect dimes, dropping it in the basket and, big plays or touchdowns. That he had some big drops, that OU receiving room. So I'll give him a little bit of slack on that because he has thrown some – and that's where I think he's going to be exceptional because he's throwing some beautiful balls. It looks effortless. He's going to be a really exceptional quarterback. Kind of why I would give Texas maybe the slight edge is, we saw the press conference with Ehlinger there, and he took full responsibility. He said, this fan base deserves better. This university deserves better. We need to do better. And so from we talk about Skyler's leadership ability all the time, and I think Sam Ehlinger might have that. We'll see if it reflects in his play. But I would maybe, from what I've seen off the field and kind of body language, I would maybe give that slight edge to Ehlinger right now. But yeah, Spencer Rattler, he's playing okay. But if you're going to carry an average OU team, I'd say right now, you're kind of their blueprints to outscore the opponent. You almost have to play perfect if you're going to be a quarterback at OU and you're just going to outscore opponents. Like that's kind of been their blueprint in the past.
K-State kicks off at 3 p.m. next Saturday in Fort Worth against TCU. Texas and Oklahoma is that big noon game on Fox. And, of course, that kicks off at 11 o'clock Central. It's noon Eastern. It's always about them. And I'm going to be tuned in. I will be very interested to watch that game leading up to Kansas State. I like the 3 p.m. kickoff. And that's kind of my favorite time slot, 2:30, 3 p.m. in there. Matt, getting back to Kansas State, what was your overall evaluation of the defense? They had some issues in the second half, but they got them corrected in time to get an interception and kind of seal the win.
Yeah, they seem to be pulling a linebacker out, whether it was Eli or maybe more so Justin Hughes, but they'd get a linebacker out of the way. You can go back years and years. You can go back before Chris Kleiman took over. I mean, that's where K-State's been getting whacked was, over the middle. The linebackers, I think they got a couple things figured out and made some plays. And, right now they're not getting great reviews, let's say. They're not just blowing things up. But I like what the defensive tackles are doing. I think it's a step up. I like Jalen Pickle and what he's been doing. But right now, Jerron McPherson is just lighting it up. And then you saw TJ Smith with a couple of big hits. I love the way McPherson's playing. The call that K-State made on the interception to seal it late was very good with him coming over the top. But I said something to Chris Kleiman after the game. Shame on Texas Tech in that position. And Travis has been in there, so he may say, "Hey, you're not a player. You don't know." I mean, everybody knew when you saw that single coverage with Vasher over there that they were going to go one-on-one and throw it up to him because he's 6'6". Okay, we see that all the time. But can you tell me where Texas Tech made its money on Saturday and what they did for the entirety of the ball game? They ran up the middle, and they threw slants, and then they threw more slants. And if I'm not mistaken, Texas Tech put up 471 yards of total offense. 267 of it was through the air. Why did you make that call? Why? Just keep going over the middle, and you're going to likely get down the field. So, to me, that was a case of big mistake by the Texas Tech offensive coaching staff. That's just me. I may be wrong, but you, as they say, dance with the one who brung you, and Texas Tech got away from it, and it cost them ultimately.
Great call by Joe Klanderman. He had Jerron McPherson lined up showing blitz, but he dropped back into coverage, confused the quarterback, and was in perfect position to make that catch. Gardner was great with great coverage, too. He was interfered with by Vasher as he tried to climb over the top of him. They didn't call it, but they probably would have if Vasher had made the catch. Impressive play by McPherson. He's been so good. I'm happy for him. I hope he comes back next year for another senior season because he kind of deserves it. Travis, TJ Smith, Elijah Sullivan, two physical football players, both flirted with ejections on Saturday for targeting. On those calls, was it targeting or not in the Travis Tannehill book?
I was hoping we were going to bring this up. I mean, yeah, in my opinion, by the rule book, yeah, those were both targeting, and they both should have been ejected. In my and from how I understand the rule book and how I understand it, I don't think they were overly violent hits. I don't think anyone was at risk of injury. So if there is a little gray and open to interpretation there from the referees, then I think they maybe handled it correct. I don't think anyone was trying to take anyone's head off, but from what I saw live, I felt like there was at least. And the hard part is I think that what's hard for the fan and myself and referees is when is a runner defenseless or a receiver defenseless? When does that line get crossed? Because if he's defenseless, the rules change, and so that's where the line is hard to draw. And I think that's where obviously the referees saw it in Kansas State favor, saying that receiver was not defenseless. And but from how I understood the rule, I was very shocked that both of those were not ejections.
Matt,
we'll take it though.
Yeah.
Live, I thought one was, and I thought one was not. And then when you get to see the replay again, then I fully understood why both of them were not. I don't know that there was, I don't know that there was anything missed. And Travis said the key word, and I have to constantly remind myself of that, and that is defenseless. You have to remember that word, and it's so subjective at times. But initially, I thought one guy was going to be gone, one wasn't. But ultimately, I see why both of them wound up staying in the game.
They both kind of lowered their helmet, but they didn't lead with the crown as much. They kind of contacted with the side of the helmet. Travis, I feel like if after about another 5, maybe 10 years, we'll have a new generation of football players that don't lead with the helmet down. Maybe. It's just guys have done it their whole lives, and now you're asking them to stop doing it. I understand it's hard, but the Sullivan one was the question for me. But the receiver seemed to still be going forward, so I don't think he was defenseless. He was still trying to pick up yardage, even though he was going down. And the target was moving. His target area moved on him as the receiver went down. It's such a split-second play. You can't just stop your momentum either. I think they actually got it right, but I could have seen it going the other way. I know this, Mr. Smith will have some targeting calls against him in his career because that kid hits like Mario Smith. He lines up and whacks people, and it's just he's fearless, he's fierce, and, man, you got to love it, but he's going to be walking that line all of his career, isn't he, Matt?
The word is intentional. He is very intentional on getting to the football, and you stole my words because after that first hit he laid on Saturday, Mario's the first thing that came to mind. So we may have to start calling him MJ because he's not as big as Mario, but he's going to put on a little more weight. But he was very intentional, and it was fun to see him get after that. And also, that adjusts your mindset. When you've got guys like McPherson and MJ, why not? Just start calling them now. You got those guys when you have those guys on the back end, whether you're running those slants like Texas Tech did or whatever, you're going to be thinking, you're going to see that on tape all week, and you're going to know some dude's going to be laying a hat on me, and he's not going to think twice about it. But we're probably going to see TJ get an ejection or two at some point in his career. He's just got to holster that a little bit, but fun to watch without a doubt.
Yeah, he sure is. And I continue to be impressed by Echo Boydo. I mean, this guy just came out of nowhere. He was getting no buzz in camp, and then the opportunity presented itself with all the injuries and COVID things going on with the team to go ahead and play at Oklahoma. Here we are 2 weeks in, and this guy is a corner. I don't know how, Matt, anyone's going to get him off the field when they come back because I think he's proven himself.
He has, and again, K-State has as good a depth right now. When everybody is healthy, K-State's depth is as good as it has been in years, and it's only going to get better. So, he's a young man that deserves a lot of credit, without a doubt. We haven't said his name nearly enough, and he does deserve that credit. I thought Justin Gardner did a nice job again on Saturday as well. Guys like Lance Robinson and the new corner from Minnesota, Keandre Thomas. one, they've got to be concerned for their own playing time, but if they're that right kind of teammate, they know that they've got to work and get that much better once they get back. But I like what I'm seeing at this point.
Trav, back to the contract that Chris Klieman got. One of the things he's exceeded my expectations with is recruiting, and the fact that he's not only rebuilding the depth of this program that had been depleted quite a bit, he went out and found guys that step in and play. And that's really hard to do, to find 3-star players that are capable of getting on the field and playing right away. But, boy, we see it now. And I think we're only scratching the surface with this class. I mean, Carver Willis played a little bit at tackle because of Cooper Beebe going out. There are more guys lined up in this true freshman class, let alone the redshirt freshman class, who can get on the field and make an impact. Recruiting's been huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why Kansas State was such a good fit for him. I mean, up at North Dakota, I mean, that's who he was having to go find the best guys that didn't get a Power 5 offer, and he had to filter through that and find the best 2- and 3-star guys that he could to put a team together, which just translates exactly to what Kansas State is. I don't remember exactly what the stat was against OU, but it was 1 million 4- and 5-stars versus all 3 stars, and Kansas State still came out on top. But what I love what he's doing, yes, he's built great depth already in a very short amount of time. But I just remember, which is Kansas State putting up a second half comeback against OU, putting up 14 points in the fourth quarter against Texas Tech. Those guys look fresh. They look fast because they now have that depth. And it's even, I think it's more of yes, it's depth, but two, it's a little bit of a coaching philosophy change from the Snyder staffs, where Coach Snyder was, hey, if you're the number one, you're going to be the number one unless you're hurt, and go out there and play 70 snaps. Where Coach Klieman's like, hey, let's get, if we got 2 or 3 guys that are good, we're going to get 2 or 3 guys in there. So I like the rotation. I like guys being fresh, because it does seem that they're just faster, have a little more left at the end of the tank come that fourth quarter, especially on defense. I mean, you have to have depth at defense. Those guys, it's offense, you know where you're going. You got, 4 or 5 snaps, and a lot of times you're on the backside. I just got to cut this guy off, and I put out some effort, but not a ton. Where if you're on defense, it's 100% effort for 10 seconds every single snap you're chasing the ball. So those defensive guys, you have to have bodies to rotate in there so you can make some stops late in that fourth quarter.
The biggest position to keep an eye on for the future on defense, and not knowing the recruiting class inside and out, just knowing some bits and pieces, is linebacker. You're going to lose Sullivan and you're going to lose Hughes, most likely. K-State's got to find some dudes to step in at linebacker. I think they're pretty good in the other spots. And I still chuckle at how long Hughes and Sullivan have been around. I called Eli Sullivan grandpa the other day, and he just started rolling. And then, you look at Eli Sullivan and Deuce Vaughn, and you got a guy that's like 55 and a guy that's like 15 on the same team. But linebacker's the one where there's got to be a big focus on getting a couple of horses that come in at that position.
Yeah, Saturday it was striking. We got 4 players post-game on Zoom, a redshirt freshman, 2 true freshmen, and Eli Sullivan, the 6th-year senior. It would be remarkable if he and Hughes came back as 7th-year seniors and work on their PhDs. Then we could call him doctor.
Right.
That would be cool.
That's it for this week's edition of the PowerCat Insiders Podcast. Ryan Black, please join us next week. We love you, we miss you, and we need your Southern drawl to complete this formula that we have on this show. And our appreciation to Blue Mark Energy. K-State goes to TCU. Next week, 3 p.m. kickoff, and the Cats are 10-point dogs on the road, probably because of that quarterback situation. We will see what happens.
PowerCat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.
MTV's official Challenge podcast is back for another season. Season 39, Battle for a New Champion. Yes, 24 contenders will compete to win their first championship. They know the battle, but not the victory.
So every week after the episode airs, come hang with us as we break down all the challenges and eliminations, and of course, get the inside scoop on all of the drama.
Listen to MTV's official Challenge podcast wherever you get your podcasts.